Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Board Games Unlocked. Brad and I are continuing our top 100 games of all time for 2024. Here we go, the second installment from 90 to 81. And we're kicking things off. Well, actually, let me talk about it because I told you I had data, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to have data every single video. I don't have that much. But last time I talked about what rose and fell and what stayed the same in 2024. So in 2023, I only go back to 2020. In 2023, I had 37 that rose compared to the 35 from 2024, 42 that fell compared to the 40, 18 that were new, and then 4 that stayed the same. Now, this is not really what's super interesting to me. What's more interesting is that I had 42 cooperative games to 59 competitive.
Right.
And last in 2024 is 53 cooperative to 48 competitive. Now, if this data really means anything, but between those 2 years, you can definitely see a huge shift into cooperative games. But still, not that like every year, I kind of expected me to have less and less cooperative, or yeah, less and less cooperative competitive games. Um, just how I'm currently feeling, and that might be even more drastic next year. But uh, it is kind of reassuring to know that I haven't completely shifted away from competitive.
Right.
Um, but yeah, so there's just some fun data, and now we can start with the actual list. Are you ready?
How did your 10 go this time?
Oh yeah, thank you. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. I had apparently me dying. 2 that rose, 4 that fell, and 4 new.
All right, I had 2 that fell, 4 that rose, and 4 new.
Okay, all right. So actually, pretty much the complete opposite. You had 2
Yeah.
that fell, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, okay. Well, let's hop on in with my number 90. So I said that I whenever I make my top 100, it's games that I own because if I get rid of games, I don't consider them for the top 100. And that is true. I did own this game whenever I made this list. I actually don't own it anymore. Not that it's a bad game, but I just have so many cooperative games, and you would expect this to be way higher. But this was one of the games that I played that made me want to redo the top 100. This was originally super high, and then I finished the campaign, and I'm like, yeah, it's not that high. And that is Divinity Original Sin. This is, I don't know if I said it, this is new to the list. This one was a game that I was skeptical on when I had first heard it because it's an IP game, and I believe every IP game should be looked at with a side eye or a squint because when it's a video game, at least to me, it's always like, well, if it's so close to the video game, why would I ever play the board game? Um, and lately, there's been a few games that have made single player video games cooperative, and that's a good enough reason to get the board game. But Divinity, as a video game, is cooperative. Um, and my biggest concern with it was, does it just follow the story of Divinity? So I'm doing this series. It's actually currently going on the channel, but this is just how time works. I'm done with the campaign, even though there's like 5 episodes left of the series. And we had a good time with it, but it kind of, at least for us, falls off by the end. You get just so overpowered that nothing is really a challenge. But it does that same system that we're seeing in Agamonia, where you go to a location and you have a deck of cards for that location. That's one of my favorite systems, honestly, for cooperative campaign games where it's just like boom, it's all concise. Boom, here we are. This is what we're dealing with, and that's it. I'm not having to dig into the box. I'm not having to run back and forth to open up a box to pull out minis. It's all right there. And the story is serviceable. It's perfectly fine. Again, very concise. Lots of different branching paths you can go. Everything is done in that book, so it's kind of like a map book that we've talked about with Frosthaven and Agamonia and stuff. And again, that's how it needs to be done. And your character builds are, I mean, you could really build whatever you want. And I don't know if our campaign, we just had the dream team, our 2 player, just like my support wizard bowcaster, and then my multi hit just buffed character from the support made things really trivial. I don't know. I don't know what, like, maybe we just had that, but you can build any character you kind of want. And there is really a lot of good things that go for this game. Again, it's 90 because I moved it all the way back because I don't own it, but I did whenever I was making this list. It is a worthwhile campaign game to get into. However, I will say don't get the minis. They're not worth it in any way. Not that they're bad, it's just that for mobs, like when you're fighting just your run of the mill enemies, you put those enemy cards off on like this dial for their health and shit off to the side, and let's say that's on like a health board, then you put like an A standee. Um,
Yeah.
like to rep, and I mean that works perfectly fine. I actually have no issue with that. Um, and the bosses are your minis. So save yourself the money if you're looking to get this game. I will say, based off what Devin was telling me, the story that we did in the campaign is not in the video game at all. So it does differentiate itself from that, which is a plus. And kind of like Fate Forge, it's very quick to get through, so you could replay it if you wanted to. I just have so many campaign games that this was one that didn't quite wow me by the end to give me the incentive to, play through it again. So that's my number 90, Divinity Original Sin.
All right. My number 90 is new to the list, and it's probably going to end up being a little higher than this the more I play it. I've started making this little turn into these uh, not medium and not high level Euros, kind of that in that middle ground, like a 3-4 on BGG, something like that. And this was one that caught my eye because of the art and the theme of it, and that is Revive.
Nice.
This one is interesting because the theme is that I'm trying to remember. The theme would be like it takes place like thousands of years past past humankind, so it's way way in the future.
Okay.
And what you're doing is you are trying to revive the civilization. You're trying to recreate everything and get it back to the way it was way back then. So what you're doing though is you have it's a card play mechanism. There's asymmetric powers for your deals, and what's cool is the production of this is really neat because the your tribe board or civilization board, wherever, is dual layers, so you've got all this different stuff. And there's a lot going on in this game. I mean, there's a lot of shit hitting the fan here, but you are exploring areas, you are populating certain locations. They call them ancient locations. You're trying to populate those. There's boards all over the place with this. It definitely is one of those games that takes a learning play, to like get through before you really can get good at it, just because there's just a lot of shit, a lot of stuff going on. But on your turn, you can you can play a card, to do whatever your action is. You can, explore. So you kind of got your deal where you're out there on the board exploring different tiles and flipping those. And like I already said, you can populate your stuff, and then you can build a factory. And you're doing all that stuff. The main goal of the game, though, is to teach and populate the large ancient sites. That's your main thing, because
Okay.
they're randomized each game, so the replayability is really good on this. And it's a victory point game, of course, but the game ends when all the artifacts that are out there have been taken. So that's kind of your end game for this. It doesn't, let's see, it's not that the theme is totally tacked on, because I mean, you do feel like you're exploring and stuff. It's just not super thematic. This is a mechanism game. If you're a mechanisms player, this is going to be a good one. but the asymmetric powers are nice because every tribe that you run is completely different. And like I said, there's just a lot of stuff going on. But I mean,
Nice.
if you're in it for a nice meaty Euro that's not quite Lacerda, not quite like a really light thing, this is a good one kind of to jump into because there's a lot of replayability with this one.
Nice. Yeah, this is one I missed whenever it came out, and then it actually has an expansion as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Yeah, I haven't picked up
Uh,
the expansion yet. I need
I,
to, but
I know nothing of this company, Porta Games.
they put out
Um,
a few things. I mean, not
I've
anything huge,
seen, yeah,
but
I've seen some of their games. Santa Maria,
yeah, that's a good one.
Automania, The Magnificent. Um,
And see, those are all like middleweight. So this is like
yeah,
their heavy end.
yeah. This is probably one of those that I'd play and be like, "Oh, that was really good.
Mhm.
I don't want to play it again." You know?
Yeah, and I can see that. I mean, this is like I said, I'm kind of shifting that way now a little bit.
Hmm.
It seems like so. Um, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
But it
Cool.
has a decent solo on it too.
Nice.
So
Oh, that definitely helps. Well, if you're shifting in that direction, well, then this next game that I'm going to talk about is one that you should probably start looking at. This is a game you have asked me about so many times. I don't think you've ever officially traded for it, and if you have, I'm pretty sure you haven't played it yet. Um, so this is a game that since I got the big box for it, I haven't touched it since, which is funny. Even though this game is fantastic, and that is
oh
the
yeah.
Anachrony the Infinity Box specifically, that organizes all. I don't even know how many expansions for it at this point. Um, this was the first Mind Clash game that I ever got and played, and it was like way high whenever I was in that zone of just I want to play the heaviest games ever. So last year it was 71. So I mean, it dipped a little bit, but in 2022 it was number 11. So you can definitely
There you
tell
go.
just
Yeah.
almost get the fuck off my list. No, Anachrony is fantastic, and I still, like I've said many times, I will still play heavy Euros and have a good time. But it is kind of these are the ones that I'm keeping, like these staples of my collection. I'll play Revive or things like that.
Oh jeez.
You want? Oh yeah, Revive is busy. This is insane. This is a two-player game too. Now, this has, I think it's the Infinity, yeah, the Infinity storage, and it looks like they're definitely playing with one of the expansions. I just don't know which one. Um, Contrary to what this picture looks like, it really isn't that bad of a game. I mean, if you can play games like Revive or Paladins of the West Kingdom, I think that this is not too high of a leap. Um, because everything just kind of makes sense. And what's really cool, if you're playing just base game of Anachrony, you have specialized workers that you send out into the world to gather resources to use to build buildings that go into your own guild, I guess is what they're called. Um, and some of those workers are better at doing things. Hey, you have an engineer, they're better at mining. But if you send the engineer off to go gather water, he's going to come back tired. And you have to have ways to get them to wake up, whether that's using water, which is a precious resource, or you can just wake them up and really dictator, slave, sweatshop, just, get back to work. And that's going to lower your morale, of course, because that just sucks. But what this game does that I really appreciate for a lot of these kinds of games is that the buildings that you can craft go into your own guild, and that's something that only you have access to. So you start getting your own engine where you don't have to send people out to go get water. You have a water filter system in your own area, so you can send workers there and they don't come back tired. Um, but this game is centered around time travel, where there's a phase where you can gather resources from your past self, but then you have to eventually pay it back. Otherwise, you start creating paradoxes, which starts getting you, um, like negative points, and you have to send workers out to go deal with that. But then they die, or they get trapped in time. Who really knows? Um, but all this is for the inevitable meteor that's coming to destroy the land, and you want to be the guild that takes over after civilization has collapsed. I can't speak to all the expansions because I haven't played all of them. But the ones that I have played are very good and add even more replayability. This, for the longest time, was one of the best solo editions I've ever seen for the way it was able to encapsulate that. There are a few solo versions that have come out, same designer, David Turczi, that I think is more impressive nowadays, but it's still super good. There is a lot going on with this game, but yeah, I don't know if I'll ever get rid of this, even though it's an every once in a while game.
Yeah.
But yeah, 89, the Infinity Box, and yeah, I don't even know if because their other one that I really like, Tricarion. I don't know if that actually made my list. We'll find out if I decide to look for it later. But yeah, that's my 89, Anachrony.
All right. Well, my number 89 is another new game to the list. And this one is by a very famous designer that we've both played a handful of his games. This was one that I picked up this year because it was on a couple solo lists. So I got it and um, ended up enjoying it quite a bit. And that is Newsfjord. Newsfjord.
Newsfjord. I've not played this one. Real quick before you talk about this, Tricarion did not make my list.
Okay.
It was a 180.
Gotcha.
So
All
anyway,
right. So this one,
Newsfjord.
Uwe Rosenberg. I mean, it's his type of thing. You know, he takes these weird, not weird, but these
Takes these
subtle, like different
backwater
locations.
countries.
Well, right, and he makes a decent worker placement euro out of it. That's not super deep. I mean, this would be kind of like an Agricola
Okay.
depth and stuff. But pretty much what you're doing is you're going back into this time period where you are. It's like a fishing village. This is all about fishing village, and it's got your typical stuff where you got your worker placement, you put stuff out. There's a lot of those little cards like Agricola. I mean, this is going to have a lot of that kind of stuff with it. But the interesting part with this game that makes this a really cool system is when you place your workers, you because you're cutting out trees on your own player board, to be able to build stuff, and that's part of one of your actions and different stuff. But there's also a place where this is a super tight money game. Like there's not a whole lot of money that flies around in this game, but what you end up having to do is that one of your actions, you can go to the market, and when you go to the market, you can buy shares of your catch, so on and so forth. So if you do it right and you have all the shares, when you bring a catch in, then you reap all the rewards and you gain stuff, but other people can buy shares in your catch. So you need to be careful and keep control of your business, because if you don't pay much attention to it, other people could just fully 100% take all the profits from your catch. So there's that stuff where you have to kind of balance that out to where there's that economy where you're trying to make sure that are you working fully for yourself and getting all the rewards, or are you going to have to dish a little bit of that money over to the person to your right because they've bought shares into your fishing business.
Are you sure this is in was it Newsfjord? This sounds a lot like corporate America.
yeah. Well, this was early times. So, yeah. This says, I was just looking on BGG, and it says 50 years ago business was booming, but I don't know it takes place back around, when there's a lot of fishing village and stuff. So it's 50 years ago doesn't seem like, because that was a bit in the 90s. So, but anyway.
not quite, but
right. But so anyway,
I'm not 50
this is
yet.
Yeah, if you like Uwe Rosenberg games, I mean, this is just another one of those that fit in. This would fit in that line pre Polyomino, because he started really doing the Polyomino stuff. So this is
I don't
really
know.
good.
He seems to be kind of doing away with that. Have you played? I'm gonna have to look it up. It's another name like this designer, Uwe Rosenberg. Have you played Ooh, Hallertau?
I have not yet.
Okay,
That's what
Hallertau
you
is
because you
another.
have that, right? And I haven't.
No, I don't have
You don't?
Hallertau.
Okay. No, I haven't
Mm.
played it yet either.
I played a friend's copy, and yeah, that's not polyomino either. But that one was pretty fascinating as well. I liked it quite a bit. Uwe is just one of again, his games are kind of like boom right there. Like those are the games I want to play.
Yeah.
And then Feast for Odin I know is on our top 10 or is in our list of games to play again just because it's been so long.
hmm
Um,
So
but
yeah,
yeah.
this one's just a really nice. This fits more in that medium. This is kind of that. The last game I talked about being a little heavier. This would fit lean toward more towards the medium side of
Hmm.
things. But it's just really neat how the economy works in it and stuff.
Cool.
Plus, it plays well solo.
Nice. Nice. All right. My number 88 it fell quite a bit actually. Again, it was 29 last year and 65 the year before. Um Not really sure why it fell so much. Even though we got more content for it. And I think I don't know, I might need to play it more to confirm, but I have a suspicion about this game, even though it is a very, very good deck builder, and that is Imperium Horizons. The best game by Osprey Games, I think, and
Uh,
compared to
you
um,
haven't played the games in that one series yet. I think you'd like Merv and those.
oh, that is Osprey Games. Yeah,
Yeah.
those very, very pretty cover games.
hmm
Yeah, okay, well, between I guess the two that I've played, this and Undaunted,
Yeah.
yeah, I very much prefer this one. But Imperium Horizons, this is also including classics and legends, is a civilization deck building game that is at best played solo. But you can play two, even though I have taught a max player game of this. I did not play in that. So that was probably why I actually enjoyed it, because I didn't have to sit there and wait for eight people's turns. Um, my suspicion on this game and why it's not as like whoa is I feel like I know everyone says the civilizations play differently and they do, but I don't when I'm playing them I don't feel that they play different. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it's it's like I understand they have low mechanisms, but it's like, this card gives me what population. And this card in this deck also gives me population, but they're different because of the theme of the civilization. And I get it; those decks still have to have those staple cards, otherwise they wouldn't work. But and I think that's just more of I haven't played every single civilization to really be like, wow, they do play different. Now the ones that do are really radical, like the Martians compared to the Arthurians. Yeah, those clearly play so different.
hmm
But if you're playing like the Greeks and the Romans, which I understand in history, they're not. I mean, it feels like those are the exact same decks with different names on them. But regardless of all that, this is a extremely solid um, deck building game and incorporates so many civilizations that I've never even heard of, which is really cool. And the AI for the solo variant is genius on how it works. It's done so well and so elegant. Uh, and the way that your decks work, I really like the fact that you have kind of like your standard deck, but then as your civilization is growing, you start incorporating better cards from like your civilization deck into your main deck. But you add those cards from cycling through your deck, and some decks are better than others. Some, like the Celts, for example, want to cause unrest, and they can actually win that way. It really is a genius civilization deck building game. Probably, in my opinion, the best Civ game out there. I know a lot of people would be like, but Civilization New Dawn or Through the Ages, and yeah, those are all very good. This one, I think, just does it makes everything concise and all in one instead of this sprawling Civ game that lasts 8 hours. So still a very good one. I would say at this point, get Horizons if you had to choose between the three, just because you're going to get more bang for your buck. Um, but at this point, I think they're done. They have, what was it, 30 civilizations? How many there are?
Jesus,
Uh,
there was, I think there was 16 with the other two combined. I think there was 8 per
32 then,
box.
yeah, because it was 8, 8, and then
Yeah,
16. Yeah,
this
so
is
32 civs, which is more than enough to get your share of variety, just because you're going to deck build different throughout the game with each civilization. And I mean, it's a genius design. So that's my number 88, Imperium Horizons.
yeah. We'll talk about this here in a few segments, I'm sure.
Oh, we might.
All right, my number 88 is the game that's been on my list the last few years, and it's kind of hovering around the same spot. It was 92 last year, so it actually went up a couple of spaces. This is one you still haven't played yet. I think it's on our list to play, but it's on here because of its uniqueness, and that is Space Station Phoenix.
I have not played this.
This one is one of those. The interesting catch or the hook of this game is you start the game with, I think it's 8 or 9 ships. You have your little fleet that you start the game with. So you are the strongest at the very beginning of the game. Your resource engine is strong. This is the best you're going to get. That it's easiest to get stuff. But once you start going further into the game, you have to start taking apart your other ships to your fleet's getting smaller the longer the game goes. You're using those parts from those ships to put onto your other ships, which means you're going to have a better engine. It's just going to be less spots to take. So you're going to get more efficient the longer the game goes, but it's just going to be less spaces that you can go to and stuff. So it gets really tight, the longer the game goes, but you get more stuff going on. And it's an interesting little setup because, I mean, you have your board that starts with, and you have all your stuff, and then you start, if you like resource and engine building games, this is a good one because there's very few games where you start off at your best. And then you are actually making your engine smaller, but more, like I said, the actions are more efficient and more.
I can't think of any game that does that where
Yeah.
you're like amazing. And then it's like, oh, yep, now I have to lose all my stuff and get worse but better.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
super fascinating to me.
It's interesting, and from what I understand, who's the designer? So I don't know if this designer's really done anything else.
I was looking at his name, and
I think this was his first game he put out too, and it's just at least
it's his only game he's
one.
put out.
Yeah, but it's just interesting how you go from that, because usually you're starting with a little something and then building up to your best engine. This one's just the opposite. And
He did a game called Exodus Fleet in 2017.
Gotcha.
And that was with TMG. God, I haven't seen. That's a name I haven't heard in 10 years.
Yeah.
Fucking Tasty Minstrel Games.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, you're just, you're gathering resources, going into other planets, stuff like that. I mean, it looks more convoluted if you look at this picture than what it really is. I mean, the turns are really fast, and stuff like that. So this was kind of one of those that flies under the radar and is actually a pretty damn solid game.
It's funny because, yeah, I remember you bringing it up, and then the podcasts and stuff that you listened to were raving about it. You must listen to some obscure podcasts because every time, no one talked about this. And if they did, it was only in that short window of time in 2022?
Probably,
Is that when this came out? Space Station.
It's 2022.
Yep, 2022.
The podcast I listen to is the Secret Cabal Gaming Podcast. It's been around for
those guys
12
fucking
years.
Suck. I've never listened to them.
No, they're one of the more popular.
I met them at Gen Con. They suck. Just to do some slander on some people that I've never have no interaction with. But yeah, no, I really want to try this. So it was not on our Google Drive, but it is now.
Perfect.
I don't know. Maybe if you looked at the list and then added.
I did, but there's so many games on there. I just
there are, and then it's like campaign games, Agamonia. It's like, well, there's all our time.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So anyway,
Nice.
that's my number 88.
Cool. My number 87, rose. It was 89 last year, and in 2022 it was also 89. So it's gone up ever so slightly. And this is actually a game that you initially didn't like, and then we had a game day, and I looked over and I was like, "You have that?" And you're like, "Yeah, it's actually kind of grown on me." I don't think it's going to be in your top 100. Maybe it will, and I'll be pleasantly surprised. Um, but this is
Yes.
Res Arcana. Not Res Arcana Duel, which I need to get a hold of so I can add it to my stuff for this. But Res Arcana is a very interesting small game, even though it's like, I mean, the box itself is not like tiny, but the way you play it, this could easily be in like a deck box. And I really enjoy the puzzle that this game brings, and the two expansions that they have for it, not counting Duel, that's a standalone thing that can be added to this, only improved upon this. So Res Arcana is a small engine resource management game where you are given 8 cards to that's all you're given. Your entire deck is 8 cards. And throughout the entire game, you're trying to figure out the puzzle of those 8 cards and how to utilize those with the character that you are, um, to gain and manipulate the 5 resources. And they all have names, but green, yellow, blue, black, and red. To manipulate those into others so you can eventually grab these places of power that will inherently work best with your 8 card synergy, your 8 card engine, to get you to 10 victory points. I think it's 10 or 13, whatever it is.
It was 10 until you get the pearls, and I think
The
that makes it
pearls, and
up.
it went up, yeah. And this is just one. I mean, just the idea of this is genius because while it's not a card, I mean, it is a card game, but it's not solely a card game. Um, it's what I love about card games. You're given the 8 cards. You just sit there and you're like, how can I utilize this in the most efficient way possible without it being this whole deck building process? And while some cards in the base game were completely useless if you didn't have certain cards, like the best one are the dragon cards. If you didn't have another dragon or something, you couldn't do anything with that card, which
Yes.
I know was an issue for you. My counter for that was that there were still ways to use that card. You just weren't using it for its ability on the card. But the expansions gave you items because there's like that reanimate and there's other cards that you can grab that now with one of the expansions let you manipulate cards like that. So if you had a card that was a dead card, it's like, well, I'm gonna grab this item so I can now use that for its effect. And that I do think improved the game so you're not like, wow, look at your 8 card engine that every card works with each other and look at my 5 card engine because 3 of my cards suck ass. Um, it's genius. I really, really like how this game works. And like I said, one of the expansions was just more content, more mages, more things, and then the other one added pearls, which were another resource for you to manipulate and also be get as victory points. So went up a little bit. Um, I mean, 2 points. Who really cares? Honestly, it's still in the same window. But yeah, if you haven't checked this one out, I highly recommend it because it's a lot deeper than like what you would initially think, where it's like, oh, I only get 8 cards. I find that super fun to be able to look through those cards and be like, okay, here's how I'm going to use this and do it to the best of your ability. But I only play this at 2. Like I've never played this at like 4 or anything.
Yeah, this fell in at 203 for
Okay.
me, and it'll probably get a little higher. I mainly picked it up because the expansions do a lot for it,
Yeah.
and I was looking for good two-player games for my wife and I to play, and we've only done it the one time, but I think she liked it. So the more we play, I think it'll get more, you know,
Yeah.
probably get
Yeah,
more.
I don't know if Res Arcana Duel does anything different, but I'll probably pick it up just to give it a shot because all the Duel games have been really good.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Um,
Yeah.
so we'll see. But yeah, that's my 87, Res Arcana.
All right. My number 87 is another new one to this list. It's a game that I showed you a handful of months ago. And I have quite a bit for this game already. I just don't get to play this quite as much, is why it's way down here, but I enjoy the gameplay, and that is Star Wars Unlimited.
Nice.
Um, this one, like I said, I mean, I have tons of stuff for every set that they've released so far for it. I'm still in the process of logging everything in so I can look online and build decks and crap. But the gameplay of this, when they announced this, I was excited because I was like, Star Wars and all this stuff. And I was like, oh, it's Fantasy Flight, so should I be excited or not? Um, but it actually is a pretty solid, uh, card game. It has a couple of interesting little type mechanisms that are interesting because you have your leader, of course, that each person goes. It's purely 1v1, and you have your deck of cards. And the interesting thing that I think is when you have your cards, one of the things you have to do at the beginning of every turn is put a card face down there in the shit. I can't even remember what the name of that. The resources part, and then that's your mana or currency to be able to play other cards each turn, and then they refresh at the beginning of the next turn and all that stuff. So like this guy has 7 he could spend, and you kind of do that stuff. But what the other unique part of this is you have ground units and space units, so you're placing stuff in those different zones, which was something kind of interesting as well. And it's just, I mean, I'm a Star Wars nerd anyway, so it has stuff from everywhere in Star Wars lore, whether it's books, video game. I mean, it's just everything. And they keep coming out with decent sets, and it keeps, being really cool stuff. And you also can flip your leader card over to turn them into even a bigger badass at a certain point in the game. We played it wrong that time we played it, just because we automatically flipped them. But once you have the right amount of stuff, you can do it whenever.
Yes, which is way better.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's like, okay, so I guess Luke just dies all the time.
Yeah. So this playmat, I have this playmat as well, and
nice.
It makes it really cool because it actually has it laid out. It's better than those paper ones that we were trying
the paper
to
ones
use.
were fine, but
they were. But then we tossed them aside there towards the end.
Yeah,
This one actually works well.
I was like, I don't want this anymore. Yeah, it's actually interesting because they kind of definitely took some stuff from Commander, like without fully ripping it off, because like you mentioned, your heroes, you can kind of build enough to get them out, but then if they ever get defeated, they're out for the rest of the game. Versus like Commander, you can technically keep bringing your Commander out. It just gets more and more expensive. That ramp of mana is genius, and these kinds of games that are coming out, I'm so glad they didn't just take that formula of mana. Like, obviously it works for Magic, but god damn do I hate it. Like, imagine if Magic, you were able to like build your deck and not have to worry about mana. Like it's so good. And I was gonna say that 2 side system is in that other game, Altered. Did you ever look into that?
No.
It does kind of the similar thing where you have 2 lanes, like, because you're trying to get your rider and your dragon to meet and at some point, and you have 2 avenues of whether you're gonna fight for to get that. And I like it. I think it makes sense. Here's my ground forces. Here's my space forces, and they can't really interact with one another.
Well, and it makes it for interesting decisions too, because you have to put a card down in the resources. So you're taking a card out of your deck or your hand. You have to try to play it like, okay, am I even going to use this turn or what? But there are a couple of cards that let you take something out of the resources back into your hands. So I mean, you can kind of mess with that a little bit, but it's just that decision, extra little layer of decision of what to put down.
Whenever you're like seeding through your deck and you're like, where is it? And you're like, oh my god, I put it in my resources. I'm cooked.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good one. I'd play it more with you, but I'm definitely not putting any money into any game like this ever.
I buy about 3 or 4 booster boxes per set they come out with. So
That's probably enough unless you
yeah,
really want to start. Dude, start a YouTube channel where you break open packs.
yeah. Well,
And then
the new set's gonna be coming out here in a couple months. So
what's the new set?
is it Twilight? I can't remember. Hold on. Star Wars Unlimited. No, I have those three. I can't remember what the fourth one is. It's not on BGG yet, but
Okay. I mean,
it's
I'm
got it.
amazed.
Yeah, it seems like it has a lot of. Can't even remember who the main characters were. Ahsoka, maybe. I can't remember. I can't
Yeah.
remember off the top of my head. I just automatically buy,
Yeah.
boosters and
I'm amazed that there's not a Team Covenant like
yeah.
subscription that you can get. And the other I'm amazed is that Fantasy Flight is supporting it as much as they are. Like it almost feels like they're supporting it too much. Like they're so desperate that just for this to succeed.
Well, they overproduced this last set, the Twilight one, so you can like buy boosters for quite pretty, significantly cheaper than the
Oh,
other ones
okay.
because they overmade it. So
Yeah,
they're kind of still figuring it out, but they have plans for several sets still down the road. They're
right.
already,
They just
um,
gotta, I mean, you gotta do tournaments, gotta keep tournaments alive, sponsored tournaments to
yeah,
keep that shit alive. And the local game stores need to, you know, host local tournaments for that as well. Otherwise, these games die so quick.
yep,
But I have a good time with it. If you ever would just want to test decks out, hit me up.
yep, will work.
All right. My number 86 was this is my second one that rose. It was 114 last year, so it completely fell off the top 100. And in 2022 it was 94. And the weird thing is again is I haven't played this recently, but it probably has something to do with the Pub Meeple matchups, what it's comparing to. Well, I guess also last year um, I took out a bunch of games that had no chance of ever making the top 100. So maybe that's why it was not getting it wasn't in my top 100 because it was getting matched up with games I thought were bangers.
Right.
But this one is extremely good, and this is the game that your wife actually prefers to a game that we talked about last segment, and that is
Yes.
Detective, a modern crime board game. And me and your wife actually get together and play this when you're not home. When you're
Yes.
I hate to be the one to tell you that, but we're
Yeah.
playing cooperative games together, solving crimes. No, this one, I think, unfortunately, I think Portal Games has kind of abandoned it because they had one come out that was like Detective Season 1 and had like these three stories, and there's no Season 2. So maybe it was sponsored, maybe it was picked up by Netflix and then it died
Probably.
after a successful Season 1. Um, but this one I really, really enjoy. It uses a time element where you have your deck of cards for kind of like the Unlock series. You have your deck of cards for the case that you're on. But all the leads you're doing take up time, and you have a certain amount of time to be able to um, like finish out a day before you start working overtime, and you have so many days to solve a crime. Uh, what is brilliant about this one is they made a website, which is right there, the Unters database, that categorizes and logs like codes that represent fingerprints and stuff. So if you go to a location, the scene of the crime, and you find a fingerprint, you put that code into the website, and then later on, let's say you're at someone's house and you get another code and put that code in, it will actually cross-reference that and tell you that it's a match. That kind of stuff I found was so genius. These games succeed when they make you feel like a detective. And I think this game, honestly, better than almost all of them, really captures that modern day detective. And I say that with no knowledge of what it actually means to be a detective, but your idea of your movie detective, I guess. It encourages you to use Wi-Fi. There'll even be signals to indicate, hey, you should look up what this is because it's relevant information. Like the very first mission that you do, uh, just is informative because it tells you about a real life thing that you look up, and then that information helps you solve this case. This is one of the few games that they provided these like headshots that you kind of want to get a cork board and do that, was it Charlie Cox like
Yeah.
string beautiful mind shit where you're just like, I've solved it. Uh, this is the only detective game that really has you do that. Um, just obscene note taking is wanted in this game, and yet it's not overbearing. Like, you will win the case if you solve the main, um, like the main question, but your score will be better if you get more information. And I like that. Unlike, Sherlock Holmes, where you read through all that shit, and at the end you're just like, who? Like, what? Completely missed all that. And Sherlock's like, I did this case in 4 leads. Okay, we're on 73, so we clearly like missed something. So these have improved over time. I really like this one. I haven't even done all the cases, but it's weird. Portal Games just, they're one of those companies that every time they announce a game, I'm like, why are you still around? They feel so out of touch with what games should be cut. Like, how this game should have been a slam dunk for just how they did it, but they did this. That, the base set, which I think had 5 uh, scenarios in it. Then they did like their season 1, no season 2 or anything like that. Then they did a signature series where they had designers make a case. So Rob Davio made one, which was good. It was set in the 80s, and the way they utilized that was really cool. Then they did another one that I don't know the designer. Let me see. It was called like Petty Thieves or something. Um, Petty Officers, and that was done by Mike Selinker and Liz Spain. That one wasn't that good. And then they abandoned the signature series. So I don't know why. I thought that was a genius idea. Hey, let's get Isaac Childress to design one. Let's get Jeremy Stegmaier to make one. That's really cool. And then they completely abandoned this and did Vienna Collection, which is set in the Cold War, which is still very good, but I don't know. I really, because there's all those detective games aren't in modern day, and I love the idea of this being in 2021 or 2024 when you're playing it.
Yeah.
So, it's in the top 100. I still think this is one of the best detective games out there, but how long it stays in the top 100, where it goes, is going to be recency if I play it. And yeah, just weird company decisions on how the direction of this game.
Yeah.
So they should have done the
Yes.
Chronicles of Crime route, where
Yeah.
if like just make, instead of doing individual things, you're just like, hey, we're setting this in the 80s, we're setting this in a noir setting, we're doing a fantasy whatever series.
Right.
But Portal Games will do Portal Games things.
Yes. All right. So my number 86 is another game that rose, and it only rose 2 spots because it was 88 last year. So it's just kind of hanging right in that same area. I don't believe you've played this one yet, but it is the ultimate edition of a game that came out quite a while ago, and that is 51st State
I
Ultimate
have
Edition.
played this game, but it's a fantasy setting.
All right. This one, because 51st State, the original 51st State came out before all of them. And then, Imperial Settlers, of course, got all cutesy with it and stuff. And then
Mhm.
they came out with the new version of this. And then, just pick your theme, which one you like
Pretty
better.
much, yeah.
This one is, the theme of it obviously is that there was a big war, the civilization, the United States doesn't exist anymore, and there's these 4 factions that are trying to become the superpower that kind of run the old United States. But it still uses a lot of the same base mechanics as like an Imperial Settlers, because you have like your little board, your narrow board that goes, and you're putting stuff on the left or the right of it as you're building out. This Ultimate Edition has all the expansion materials, everything out for it, and also with really nice um, wooden, you know, tokens and stuff. So it makes this is the best version. Like if you can find this is the best. It plays really well solo. Um, but you know, like I said, it's pretty much Imperial Settlers. There's just some differences and terminology differences. This is a more violent version of the game. You know, Imperial Settlers try to be a little, oh, I'm going to raise your city. I'm going to do this and that.
Right.
But this one, you're pretty much going out and just murdering people and stuff like that.
Nice.
But you can invade locations, which is kind of the same as like your raiding kind of stuff. Um, and It also has the whole, you know, in Imperial Settlers, there was the deals, you know, where you turn a card upside down to do that. This one, um, you're signing contracts with other people, you know, and different stuff. Um, you know, this is just, like I said, I actually, when I'm looking at those two games, like I like post-apocalyptic stuff.
Yeah.
So the dark, you know, kind of grimy theme of this, I like a lot. But it's just not as popular. Like I can get Imperial Settlers to the table a lot easier than I can this, just because it's easier for people will, you know, lean that way more.
Yeah.
But this one's still an awesome implementation of the game. I played the old original version of this game, and it was good, but it was tedious as hell. Um, but This one, you know, after Imperial Settlers came out, and then they did this that same way, it's just top notch, and it's a good one for sure, and it plays well solo as well.
Cool. Yeah, I obviously haven't played this, and I owned everything for Imperial Settlers, but once Empires of the North came out, I'm like, and I wavered back and forth on which one I liked between them. Then I kept playing Empires of the North, and I'm like, yeah, this is better. And then I got rid of Imperial Settlers and haven't looked back. So, like, I know we were gonna play this one game day, and then you're like, dude, it's basically the same game, and I'm like, all right, let's play something else that I can do a review on.
Yeah, well, and there's a couple of differences, like because I wasn't ready that day either, because there are some differences. I hadn't played it for a while, but this is my highest. Like I was just looking, because Imperial Settlers and Empires of the North, neither one of them are on my list now.
Gotcha.
They both fell off, which they both were on it, you know,
Yeah.
years prior. So this one's kind of the one for me that has won that battle.
Okay. Cool. I noticed that some of the expansions have Neuroshima Hex
It's in
like
the same
factions
world.
on it. Same
It's in that
world.
world. Yeah, kind of a lot of
Cool.
it.
Speaking of Neuroshima Hex, it is not my 85, but apparently they're releasing a 10th anniversary edition. Can't wait for them to drop the ball on that.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
fantastic skirmish game. Like if that 10th anniversary is on crowdfunding and it's like, hey, it's every expansion, I'd be like, cool. It's not
Hmm.
gonna be. And if it is, it's gonna be done like shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, my number 85. Now, I'm gonna be fully transparent here. This is new to the list, kind of, because I picked the two that I liked better, but it's pretty much I mean, it's not the same game. They do have major differences between the two. But I mentioned at the very beginning, we were talking about the top 100, how it's immediately outdated as soon as we start doing this. And this is a perfect example of that because I don't imagine this will be in my top 100, which is a shame because everything about this game I should like, but I recently played this and uh, my number 85 is Seventh Citadel.
Interesting.
Now listen, like it's kind of Seventh Citadel, Seventh Continent. I still have these games in my collection because there's something about them that still has me intrigued. But I'm in this as a content creator, and I've heard this from other way more popular content creators, mainly Let's players and stuff. But like one of them, for example, mentioned that he doesn't get enjoyment from video games if he's not streaming. And I'm in that same slight boat with campaign games, where not all of them, like I can still play campaign games, and I'll be like, thank God I'm not recording this. Uh, but I do have that feeling where it's like, oh, I want to do this campaign game, but I want to do it for the channel. It's a long way of saying I was after Divinity, Devin and I were gonna play Seventh Citadel as our next series because he has Seventh Continent, and we were both like, yeah, let's actually dive into this. And this is a lot more narrative driven, narrative focused. And we got about four, maybe four might be too much. We got about like two or three missions in. And he's like, "How you feeling?" And I was like, "I don't want to play this." And I think it's because at two players or more, God forbid more, nothing is connected. Like you're off doing your thing, I'm doing my thing. It's a vast world of exploration. But what the gameplay loop kind of comes down to is you move one spot and then you rifle through millions of cards to pull a card out, read a sentence, put it out, move on to that, rifle through cards. So you're fiddling with these hundreds upon hundreds of cards for very little reward. So and that was happening a lot with two players. So I'm like, okay, I definitely don't want to do this at two. And I was doing my solo series, which I quit doing because life happened. But I don't know. I'm torn because I do like the overall systems of this game, and I'm intrigued by the world, and it does have one of the best senses of exploration. Um, I just don't know. I don't know if the work, like if I'm playing by myself, maybe I just need to just play it casually, uh, or if this is just one of those games that, hey, it's too much work with very little payoff. Um, because yeah, so I mean it's at 85, and like I said, this was done back before I had replayed. I was going off of my solo experience, which was a lot more positive. Uh, so I'm torn. I might just have to one day give this my full attention, really try to immerse myself because I know they have music and soundtrack, and just play by myself and see if it's worth it
Yeah,
because I didn't have new content coming for it because I backed their new stuff. Um, but I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to efficiently make the box, rifling through cards more efficient. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm fully saying out of every game that is in my top 100, this is the one I'm almost positive will not be here next year.
it's interesting because this was the one I've been kind of loosely looking for because I didn't like Seventh Continent, and I'd
Yeah.
heard this was a little more guided a little bit, so I was like, oh, I might
Oh,
be able to try this for solo.
I
So
don't know if you ever watch my discussions when I do them by myself. I have a discussion 2.0 coming on this game at some point. So listen to that because yes, it is 100% more guided. You're not just wandering aimlessly like Seventh, but this one almost feels like it's too on the rails because
gotcha.
it's like it tells you exactly where to go to finish the story, like the chapter. But then it's like, well, I kind of want to explore a little bit, and it kind of it's like, yeah, you can a little bit, but there's no reason to. Like, just go east. We told you go east, so just do that. Um, so I don't know. It almost like they hard course corrected from Continent. But I do have a discussion. Either it's posted by the time this video goes up, or it will be, and there's my full breakdown on this compared to Seventh Continent.
Gotcha.
So I'm torn. This is one of the games I'm most conflicted on, but we'll see. We'll see where it's at next year, but probably not on the top
Gotcha.
100.
All right. Well, my number 85 is a game that I showed you um, quite a while ago, back when you lived in your old place, and uh, it's it's a game that says it plays up to 6 players, but my God, I would shoot myself. Um, this is a solo game, like in my mind. We played it 2 player, and it was fine. It didn't thematically match up when we were playing it with the 2 players. So solo is the best way to go, and that is
Oh,
Apex Theropod deck building game collected edition. Um, yeah, we played it in because it's a deck building game, obviously,
hmm.
but when we played that 2 player game, it was fun. We were building our species up, but then the weird thing was fighting the end dinosaur thing that we were trying to go towards, like the
Yeah.
Apex, and it didn't make
Yeah.
sense playing with two. That's why solo's the best way to do this.
Yeah.
BGG even says, community says 1 to 2, but best at 1. So I
Yeah.
agree with them. Um,
Yeah, because
th-
you're trying to be the apex
yeah, you're trying to
predator,
be
and
right.
if I kill mine and then you kill yours, it's like, well, wait a minute,
Yeah,
there's
do we
that
fight each
fucker
other
over
too?
there.
Yeah, so this one has everything that came out with it. And what's awesome about this game is it came out a few years prior to this one, but it was a sort of failed Kickstarter. Like, 70% of the people got their stuff, and then the company went out, and there was another huge amount of people that didn't get their stuff.
Was this like a COVID
Um,
thing where they got fucked on
no, this
shipping?
was this was
Oh, okay.
previous.
Oh, okay.
Because this one came out in 2020, so that it was pre. So this one came out at COVID time, pretty much.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's what killed the
Well,
shipping and all that, why so many
well,
people didn't
no,
get
it was
there.
several years prior, like a few years prior to this one being made.
Oh, okay.
So, but because one of the Chads backed the old stuff and didn't get it, and that was so. Anyway,
Gotcha.
what ended up happening is this Outland Entertainment. They're actually located like around Kansas City, um, and they really haven't done a whole lot, I don't believe. But they bought the rights to this, and then put out another project. And what they did is they were able to see the people that didn't get their stuff, and they sent stuff, the people that didn't get their stuff, to them, which was awesome. I thought, I mean, that was a neat
Yeah.
thing to do. um, One of the things that drew me to this game was, I mean, I obviously don't have any games like, I love deck building games, and but the art on these games is just crazy. Like with the box cover, and then
Mm-hmm.
the card art, especially when you're looking at like the the DNA, like the cell stuff and all that's all like really vibrant and
Yeah.
everything. But pretty much it has all these different species of dinosaurs, and you start out as hatchlings, and you're kind of going through your deck, building it up, and then once you get a certain number of stuff, you can unlock the next iteration of that. Um, and you know, it's just really neat. And like I said, solo is the best way to go. And then there's these little events that pop up every round. It could be, fires or all this different stuff, um, that you have to kind of work around and stuff as you're evolving your stuff and defeating other dinosaurs that pop up.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that was weird, and I was hoping that they might do more with this, but I think they pretty much just bought this just to get it out to everybody. But I was hoping they would kind of do something more with like the water, because one of the
Yeah.
species that was unlocked with the original iteration of this game was the megalodon.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're playing the megalodon, it doesn't thematically make sense because there's all the stuff on land that you're trying to deal with.
That you're hunting, or like you mentioned,
Right.
like, hey, forest fire. It's like, why am I affected by this?
Right.
Yeah.
So I was hoping they'd put out like maybe another version with like water, prehistoric ocean animals or something like that.
Mm.
That would be kind of cool. But and then they also have the really stupid ones I've never even played, the robotic dinosaurs and the zombie
No, that one's
dinosaurs.
cool. The zombie one is dumb. The
Yeah.
robot one is cool. It's kind of like Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah.
That's
So
and those both of those would actually make more sense with the events and all, and like everything else, like all
right.
the other dinosaurs. But
Yeah, yeah. I mean that makes sense. It's just odd having, like,
yeah, it is random.
because I think when we played, I was T Rex and you were the Raptors, and they both felt, because you were just like swarming with Raptors all over the
Yeah.
damn place. And it's just one of those deals. Like if you can hunt this down, because I don't know how hard it is to find. I'm not really sure, but um, it was like, I don't know, $100 to get this collected edition that had everything out for it.
And aren't the cards like dual? Like they're thicker, aren't they?
They're thicker, yes, because that was a deal. Because I tried to sleeve them, and it was like they weren't fitting in my
Yeah,
sleeves
that's
very
right.
well because they were had a more thickness to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is a really really nice deck building game that
Mm-hmm.
if you're a solo player, I mean, it's almost a no brainer solo wise. Like this is a great solo um, deck building game. You
I
know.
agree.
Yep.
I agree. All right. my number 84 is new to the list, but it's not new to the top 100 because I know for a fact it's been on here um, at some point. But like I said, I only go 2 years back, so it wasn't on the list for the past 2 years. But I did get to play a full player game of this with some, well, they're coworkers of mine, but I don't live up near them anymore. But and it just reminded me of how incredibly solid this game is, and that is
Mm.
Small World. I know, right? Haven't talked about
I
this one in forever.
I just bought all the stuff back for it this year
Oh, you
too.
did?
Yeah. I just
Nice.
rebought it all because I've owned it like twice before, and I never really
Yeah.
got it. But Amy really likes it now, so that's why I repurchased it all.
Dude, it's so good. I mean,
Hmm.
just base game alone, your replayability is through the roof. But then you get like the I wouldn't like get Small World, and then if you can get those expansions, what I think looks like two of them that add in new races and abilities, and then you're good. Like
Yeah, you
don't
don't
get
need all that other
Underground,
stuff.
don't get Small World of Warcraft, don't get any of that shit.
No.
Um, but this one is a very wacky game that was just like fun. This is Fun the Game, where you will take a race with a what? It's like, dude, it's like, oh man, I wish we could see the board with your weird lamp
It is a weird
person.
lamp.
But you'll pick a race that has an ability, and then you'll pick like an adjective that is tied to that race to give it an even better ability. And you'll just have piles of both of those, the abilities and the races, and then you'll just kind of put them out, and then you eventually will kind of bid. Well, you won't bid on them. You'll have a certain amount of money that if you want to go further down to get something, you have to place money on it to get it. So that if someone grabs a different, uh, like an earlier race,
Hmm.
they're going to get all that money for being passed on. And in this game, money is victory points. But both of those combined will give you a certain number of chits that you use to area control these locations. But what's fascinating about this game is that your race with the busted ability will eventually die out. You will run out of chips. It might last longer than a lot of other people's, but eventually you will have to put them into decline, which means you flip them. They'll still be on the board to count towards area control, but you can't use their ability anymore. And then you just grab a new race. So the trick to this game is figuring out when you put your faction into decline, and then when do you grab a new one. And I mean, full player count of this is so much fun. Like, you never quite know who's in the lead, but you are like, man, that person that's a really busted ability. We got to get them out of here as quickly as possible, just because like it's too good. Um, but usually, if it's really good, they don't have a lot of people, unless it's like Invincible Ratmen, and the Ratmen have like 80 tokens, and you're like, okay. Um, but just that sheer combination of, I mean, just having one ability go for like being combined with different races is going to be a completely different tactic every time you play. And God, when did this game come out? 2009 or
Yeah, it's an
something?
old. It's a little earlier than that, maybe.
Small World. 2009.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Nailed it. Yeah, so 15 years ago, well, no, 16 years ago now. That is insane. And just playing it over again just last year, I was like, it's so good. Like, it's so much fun. And again, it's one of those area control games that you're not taken too seriously. When you have a busted ability, everyone is like amazed by it. They're not just like, well, this is unfair, you know?
Right.
Um, it's just like, all right, let's see what's on the docket. What busted ability can I get that can maybe counter that? Um, it's just cool every time you're excited to see how the combinations are going to come out and be like, oh man, that's really good. That one's also really good. That one's really good. But I mean, if you don't have any money or you don't want to spend your money, you always have to take the top one for free.
Right.
Um, and then the expansions just add more abilities and um, more races, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they ever, besides the Underworld or the World of Warcraft, they never like made a new map. It's just based off how many players, and that's
Yeah, because
perfectly fine.
it's a double-sided board, depending on your player count.
Player count. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yep.
And that's okay. I actually the game isn't about the board, it's about the races. So that's why it's my 84. Small World.
Yeah, it's an evergreen for them for sure.
Yeah.
All right. My number 84 was my honorable mention last year, so it's climbed a little
Whoa.
bit. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, and this version that's going to be on here is the newest iteration of this game. I have the original and this. This is what's pictured because I haven't gotten into this newest one a ton yet, just like one play, but it's kind of a combo of both of them. And that is Village Big Box.
Nice.
Village came out a handful of years ago and was a really neat deal. Had a few expansions come out with it. They came out with this big box, which changed the art style completely. But it has all expansions, including a new expansion, all promos that's come out for it. It kind of has a little bit, it has it all. Um, so take it for what, whatever it is, whatever your art style that you prefer is. This one's kind of got a simplistic art to it. So
Love
it's,
it. It's like old fairy tale art. I really
yeah,
like it.
yeah. And the other one was kind of like the old, like, I don't know how
That
to
old
explain it.
early 2000s Euro art.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Uwe Rosenberg type stuff,
Yeah,
like that
bad art.
stuff. But this game is interesting because you are a family back in this time, and you are um, trying to um, you're trying to have like your family name live on, kind of like that kind of stuff is what you're kind of pushing towards. But, you know, time moves on in this game, obviously. So you're going to have people that pass away. So you're going to be burying family members and all this different
Yeah,
stuff as you go.
the ripe old age of 30
Yeah.
in this time period. Oh,
Yeah.
grandpa's dying. Say goodbye. Well, he's 32. Yeah, he caught a cold. It's over.
Yeah, pretty much. But the designers of this game was what struck me because because I'd played other stuff by these guys before this game, and then that's why it brought me back to this game because Inca and Marcus Brand, they are
They're
God,
the Exit people.
well, and they've done other
They did oh man.
what's the one I'm trying to think of? They had Rajas of the
Rajas
Ganges.
of the
Yeah.
Ganges, yep.
Yeah, that's the other one that I really like from them. That one I like even more than this. But spoiler alert. Um but yeah, have you played Rajas, haven't you?
Yeah, it was fine.
Okay, I thought. But anyway, so this one you see like the board is a little more, it's like primary
Yeah.
colors, different stuff like this. Like, so take it for whatever art style you want. But this one um is neat because you have all these different actions you can take, and that you're of course your nice little morbid graveyard down here at the
Yeah, for the people
like,
who don't get remembered.
right,
It's like,
exactly.
oh, dump them in the mass grave. It's our Black Plague pit.
Yes. But yeah, so you have all these different actions at these different locations because there's going to be cubes at these different locations, and the round ends once all the cubes are gone from a location. But I have not really messed with the in and the port expansions a whole lot. I've really only dealt with the base game of this a whole lot.
Hmm.
But then there's the new expansions, the marriage expansion, and I have no idea what that one brings either. But I don't know how that works with family and all that stuff, like the marriage. Back, it'll be interesting to see.
The husband dies a lot sooner.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, but it also has the reason I went with this version is because it has a revamped solo mode
Oh, okay.
that makes it pretty solid on the solo side of things. Has dual layer boards, obviously you can see it's just a better production overall.
Yeah.
And it's a neat game because of just you seem like it feels to me like anyway that you always can be doing something. There's
Hmm.
enough stuff out there to do and enough choices, and the expansions are just going to add more stuff to it.
Yeah, this one I do need to get. I owned it with the two expansions, with the original version, but I do want the big box. And this, and the tribute to this game is clearly it's a Euro. but it's one of those oh, what do they call it? Like I don't know if it's immersive storytelling is the right phrase, but while this game doesn't tell a story to you, you can make a story while you're
Hmm.
playing it. Yeah, and you don't have to by any means, but if you want to get a little bit more out of a Euro, um, you can do that with just like giving maybe your family members assigned roles. Oh, you know, estranged son goes off on his pilgrimage and he comes back right as the dad dies and he was able to say goodbye. If you really want to get morbid about it, because I mean, the whole game revolves around that central mechanism
Well,
of,
well, you can combine Gloom and Village, and then
yeah, that's how everyone dies. You
yeah,
have to tell a story with gloom cards. Now that's something that no one does. Like that's a YouTube channel
TM
right there.
TM.
Is Yeah, yeah, trademark that. Royalties come our way. But that would be so fascinating having people take two games and try and design a game
Yes,
from both of them. But yeah, I agree. This game is I mean, I think severely underappreciated.
it is. And what's cool is this big box that has everything with it. I think I got it for $70
Oh,
online.
really? Okay, I thought it
Yes,
was
and
like
it's
a
not. It's
hundred.
not. No, it's not super expensive at all. It's like
Nice.
$70.
What
It's
you know what upsets me a little bit though is that cover for the box I really like. I
mhm.
hate that board.
Yeah,
I
the
think that
board's
board
kind
is
of
clip art shit. Like
yeah.
I mean, maybe it's better like actually looking at it in real life, but from an angle, I'm
It
just like, oh my god,
it is. I mean, it looks decent once
it's
you
so
and it takes
flat. It looks
it
so
takes some getting
flat.
used to. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
yeah,
I
I
also
have the
don't.
old version. I need to get rid of still.
Nice. Um, but yeah, I think I tried the inn. The inn, I think, is like a new job. You can make beer. Um, and that's really all I remember. I don't
Yeah,
remember the
can't remember
port,
the name.
and you said marriage was new. So, all
Yeah. Yep.
right, good deal. My number 83 is new to the list. So this is the last new one for this segment, and this one is legitimately new because I just got the collection for it in, and a running theme for a lot of games that I very much enjoy tend to be card games. And because one, they're easy to just provide expansions for, and two, they really give you almost unlimited replayability. Now, while this isn't as massive as a lot of other card games, this one still gives you a ton of replayability, and I really like the overall flow, and that is Dale of Merchants collection. I'm also secretly a furry. I guess it's not a secret anymore. Brad actually got me into the community, which
Yep.
was really, yeah, the Eagle. He's not even a Philadelphia Eagles fan. That's just what he wears is an
Oh,
Eagles cock. Let me see that cock. And that's the game. Anyway, that's my 83. No, Dale of Merchants is like it's in that Snowdale universe. I don't know that Lands of Galzier um, is in, where it's anthropomorphic animals. But in this game, every animal has like their own faction, which has a different way that they play. But what you do is one, you can go on their website you can actually tell the website what expansions you have and what kind of game you want. Do you want it to be highly competitive? Do you want it to be casual? Do you want money? How much randomness do you want? And you set all those, and it'll tell you what factions to throw in. And I love that with like Elysium or um, Dominion even does that. And so what we're doing in this game is it's kind of a race to be able to build out your stall um, through kind of set collection. And you're on your turn, you have your own deck of cards. It's a deck builder at the same time, and you're getting these different items into your deck that you will eventually want to pull out of your deck to put into your stall, and then it's completely out. So it's kind of a deck deconstructor at the same time, which not enough games do. Yeah, there's culling cards from it in a deck builder, but there's nothing where it's like your overall. Well, no, there's Valley of Kings, but that game is poop. So this is the good deck constructor. Um, and whenever you are utilizing cards, you can really get into a lot of really cool combos that will either help you out with getting at your stalls, getting items, messing with other players. It just depends on which factions you happen to throw into that shared market deck. And I just really like that overall variety with how many animal factions there are. Um, and I mean, that's pretty much it. There's not really a whole lot to this game, but it's so easy to get into that, I mean, it just jumped into my top 100.
Yeah.
So I have the collection because it includes all the expansions, and I mean, because there was Dale of Merchants 1, 2, and 3, and they come in these really thin, like boxes, but the collection lets you organize it all into one. So I really enjoy it. So that's my 83 Dale of Merchants, which
Yeah.
actually, hold on, was it Peacemakers?
Yeah. Peacemakers is by them too.
It was by them? Okay. I was like,
Yeah.
there's a third game. Yeah,
Yeah.
Peacemakers. Horrors of War. Yeah. So they have three games. I don't know if it's all the same universe, but
I think it is. The
gosh,
animals look similar on the front. That's
yeah. So
a
I
little
would
bit.
imagine that it is.
Yeah. All right. My number 83 is a game that it's my last new to the list game. It's on here. I haven't played it a ton. Like this is going to be one that's just kind of scratched the surface with it. I learned this game. We both learned it together, I think, because we played it, and I don't know if we recorded it or not. But um, it's kind of hard to explain. It's kind of got that same vibe in a weird way as like a Res Arcana, but it's a definitely more in depth. And people say it's the next iteration of Res Arcana. I don't believe that. I can see where there's a little few similarities to it, but that is Evenfall. Um,
Oh no, this is way closer to Elysium than
yeah, I know, but
Res
that
Arcana.
was where I was going, because like a lot when I kept hearing reviews on this and different stuff online, it was like this is like Res Arcana on crack, and I was like, I went into it expecting that, and then I was like, no, this is more, yeah. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
the whole Elysium type stuff.
we did do a review on this.
Okay.
It's so good.
Yeah, this one is it was better than I was even expecting, and I was expecting it to be pretty decent. I mean, the art style is awesome on this.
Hmm.
But pretty much what you're doing is you're like a coven of witches, I guess is what you'd say, or a group of witches of some sort. And
Yeah.
it's got your worker placement stuff. So you're putting these workers out in these different areas, trying to, with places of power, and you're getting these different power stones and all this different stuff. But what's cool. I mean, it's card driven. So you're going to have your hand of cards doing different stuff. Of course, it's engine building, because that's just what these kind of games do.
Yeah.
But you need to be efficient. Like, order is important in this game, like how you do stuff in certain order. And you're trying to synergize all that stuff to get victory points. The thing that caught me with this game initially is when you're learning it, it's like this game lasts 3 rounds.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Game, I'm like, holy shit, how are you going to get anything done in 3 rounds?
Yeah.
But it almost kind of has that. And remember that I'm saying this very, very loosely, but like games like Everdell and Lost Ruins of Arnak, you start with so few deals, and there's not a ton of rounds in those either.
Yeah.
But you build on stuff. That's why efficiency is so key, because you're trying to make the most out of your turn.
I think those are super solid comparisons where it's like if you suck ass at managing resources, you're going to be done before everyone. And those other games do that exact same thing.
Yeah. So, but what's cool is like when you're building your tableau of stuff out there, it gives you spots where you can also put your own witches and do different stuff. And then, you need to put cards down to, like, locations and stuff to be able to put other things on top of. It's just, I don't know. This one's one. There's the multi-use cards as well. I mean, because you can tuck them under to get those generally in-game abilities, I believe.
Yeah, so I can actually, I can jump in on this because it actually didn't make my top 100. I'm kind of surprised that it didn't because I do really like this game. Um, Yeah, the cards can either be, yeah, for end game victory points or for like abilities during the game, like your followers. You can pick
Right.
how you want to use them. And it's funny because when you have a follower that gives you like a passive ability, like she has on the left, um, you're gonna be playing and look over and be like, I hate how you're over there because I want you for end game victory
Right.
points.
Yes. Yeah, it was really pleasant surprise on this one though.
Yeah.
And I have not tried the solo version of this game. I haven't heard if it's good
Oh,
or not.
yeah, I don't know.
Um,
This
but
also does that same Elysium thing where you have to decide when to move it down into your inner circle.
right, right,
But what's cool about this one, unlike in Elysium, where it's like this is now just going to score me points, um, you can move them into your inner circle, so your old witches can now use them. So they're
right.
not completely out of it. You can actually still utilize the ability, which is really cool.
Yes. Yeah. So this is one that if I continue to be able to get to play this, it might even rise higher than this. Like this was just after a couple of plays on this one,
Yeah,
and it's just like you said. I mean, Elysium's one of those older games that we both liked that just kind of has disappeared for all intents and
yeah,
purposes. So that was
and
nice to have another game that kind of did that.
it's supposed to get an expansion, but I don't know. I think it's out, but I think not in the US.
Yeah.
Um, so which I mean it will come over to the US, but yeah, I'm excited to see what that brings too.
Yep. So that's my
Good pick.
83 even
Yeah.
fold.
This was my 134
Gotcha.
apparently. So, my number 82 fell. It was number 60 last year and 70 the year before. Which again, this is another instance of a game I played recently, so this might just be a pure taste thing. Um, or who knows? The rising and falling of this is a little bit interesting because of the way I did it. I did it differently, so I'll have more next year. I'll have more accurate rising and falling. I think if I do the every game and then do
Right.
it again for the top 100. But still a fantastic game, and that is Gugong. Which every time I say that, I feel like I'm being super racist. Like it's like, man, can there's that? It's the Burgundy felt game, and I mean, just on the box alone, that's the sexiest box ever. No, there's never been any other game that's a felt felt
Yeah.
felt box. But um, this is a super unique worker placement game. Have you played this?
No.
Okay. One, I think you would really like it, and two, it is a super unique worker placement game where your cards, your workers are cards, because in this game, the theme is that gift giving is an act of respect, and whenever you're giving gifts, you always want to give a gift of a higher value. So when you're playing, when you want to do an action at a location, you actually have to replace the card that's there with a card that's higher. It goes up to nine, but you can replace a nine with a one, which are number one is fruit. So um, I don't know if I think they gave a thematic reason why that was the case, but I think it's also so a nine doesn't just block a spot. But like a lot of worker placement games, there's various locations of strategy. The very top one is your standard roaming the area to get stuff, and like Voyage of Marco Polo or Darwin's Journey. There's just, hey, here's the travel section. Um, there's an area of building the Great Wall of China. There's getting jade. There is getting endgame victory points. There's another boat section. But one major element of this game is the very center where that two card is, where you are going up these steps, I think to meet the Emperor, I think is what it is. This game is, I don't know how many, I know there are other games that utilize this system, but this is the one I remember the most, where if you do not get your meeple that's there to the top, you do not score. Like, so that's one thing that you always have to be making progress on and have to get there by the end of the game. Otherwise, your score is a fat zero. Um, but that system of your cards being workers, you wouldn't ever think that, but that is what it is. Hey, I want to do this. I want to go to this location. I need to replace this two with a five to be able to do this location, or I need to replace a seven with an eight. But you also want to retain cards for the next round, and you also there's like a day and night kind of phase for scoring. You want to retain cards for that also. But what's fascinating about this game is you're invested the entire time, but it is not complex. Like this is a very simple game to learn, and the deluxe edition adds in a bunch of modular expansions, which are very good. So it gives you even more gameplay. I mean I know you're completely put off by the theme, but I really think the gameplay would sell you 100%.
I don't think that, because I mean this is fine. I mean, like, there's the Japanese stuff is only like the feudal, like all the stuff that goes along with it. This economic stuff is different
Got it.
and
Got
stuff
it.
like
Did you
that.
ever watch Shogun though? The
No,
show?
I
Oh
need to.
man.
I really
I'm
need
like
to.
I'm
But
like it's so good.
yeah, that's what I hear.
But yeah, so I'll add this to the list because this is a very very solid one. So that's my 82. Gugong.
All right. My number 82 is a game that had been on my list in previous years until last year. It was 164 last year, so it jumped 82 spots.
He's God.
And the reason is because I didn't own it, for the last several years, and I repurchased it early this last year,
Gotcha.
just because I wanted it back in my collection. Now I don't have all the Kickstarter stuff for it and all that stuff. I
No,
just pretty
then
much
why
have the base
bother?
game, but I just wanted to have it in my collection because the even just the base game and playing it every now and again, it deserves to be on this top 100. And that is Blood Rage.
Forgot you. Yeah, you did keep selling this.
Well, I had the again because I backed the original Kickstarter with everything
Yeah.
back when Kickstarters were cheap, and it was like what $80 to get everything for the Kickstarter. It seemed like,
Yeah. God, if they, I'm amazed they haven't reprinted this.
yeah, yeah. So I
Do they have
sold,
the
but
rights? Does Eric Lang hold the rights to Blood Rage?
I don't know. Well, they had a Kickstarter a couple of years ago that had all like a bunch like big playmats and revamped stuff and
I
everything.
guess,
But
yeah. I'm
yeah,
actually
but
genuinely amazed that they. I mean, I guess there's not much more content to throw in.
yeah,
This game is so airtight.
right. The only thing I would really want for this game would be just like the extra monsters, because like I don't really care about the gods. I didn't really care about the all that other
The
stuff really a whole
Druid
lot.
expansion, I think, is actually really good. I don't play without it, but the Gods of
Yeah,
Asgard expansion is
yeah.
bad. I don't really like it.
So anyway, this one is one that like I said, it was back in the day. Because I had it, and then it was selling for crazy amounts back then. I think I paid like $80 for the Kickstarter, and I sold it for like $400 to get rid of it. And I'm
Yeah,
like, now I just want all the other monster minis, but that's okay. This will be fine.
I got
Yeah. But
I
anyway,
got
this
him.
was
I got my copy is from John too.
yeah, yeah.
Fuck
This
you,
is
John.
the one that kind of kicked off that whole series of games. With like uh, Rising Sun and Ankh and all those different things. I still
Mm.
think this is the best one of all those. Um, I haven't really done Rising Sun hardly at all. But Ankh, we all know my opinion on that game. But anyway, this one is your card drafting, which is one of my favorite mechanisms. It's got area control. Um, there's all these different strategies you can use within the drafting of cards to do different stuff, and the battling system's cool. They use the Valhalla thing as a neat thing, because when your players die, certain aspects you could get points for that and different stuff with if you're doing, especially doing Loki stuff. But and then each round, a segment of the map gets totally destroyed, and you're just going around.
Yeah.
It has your rage track on your personal board. That's your currency. So you're spending your rage to do certain things.
See, this is like the perfect balance of a fighting game. Like Kemet, I think is like, well, it's so one note,
mhm.
and here it's like you can legitimately do well by turtling up, but eventually you're gonna want to have to start fighting everyone.
Right.
So
Yeah. So this is just a classic. I mean, it came out in 2015.
yeah, 10 years old.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So but it still just is probably one of the best best area control games, I think, because I don't do a lot of area control games, but I think this is one of the better ones.
Yeah.
Because it's not that difficult to learn this game. Um, it's just the drafting is you just need to know the cards and know what's out
Yeah.
there for when you're
This
playing. Because yeah,
this game has layers to it because every time I've played this and taught and have like with new people, they'll figure out something like a strategy that I had never seen before,
hmm
and I'm like, oh man, we got to stop that
yeah,
because like I just had one person, he just stayed in one area and just kept like fighting one person over and over and kept getting a ton of glory points for it. And I'm just like, okay, we gotta shift away from quit fighting him over there.
yeah, yeah. So this one's
It's
this one's kind of the classic one of that series for sure.
Yeah, I agree. This is a very good one. All right. And the last one for this segment, I imagine this will be higher on your list. It was way higher on mine. It was 26 last year and 33 the year before. So as you're gonna see, it's a running theme that a lot of games that have dipped a lot are gonna be Euro games. But this one is still extremely good. It doesn't mean I hate it any less. It just means I like a lot of games more. And that is
Mm, yeah,
Maracaibo. Now, I haven't played, was it Pirates of Maracaibo?
I have.
Um,
Yep,
the only thing I heard on that is people think I think they like it better than this.
it's
I
faster. I mean,
faster.
that's really the only. I mean,
Okay.
I like them both. I keep them both just
Yeah.
because.
Alexander Pfister is definitely a designer that I keep my eye out. He does tremendous work. He's kind of like he's like the Danny Garcia. Like there's those names for Euro games that it's like, oh, what are they making?
Right.
Because I definitely want to check it out. This one sings with multi-use cards. Like every card. I mean, it looks super busy when you look at the cards, and then you're like, oh, what do I do with this? But really, obviously, when you learn the game, you're able to deduce, oh, hey, this is what it's used for resources, or for its ability, or for its whatever it might be. Um, but you're playing as mercenaries, uh, trying to basically not really pledging any allegiance to one side unless your track on those factions goes up, then you really want their influence to be out to give you your multiplier. But this game is a rondel game, like his Great Western Trail, which is fantastic also. And you are going around various islands to utilize actions at those spots. But what's also really cool is the multi-use cards can give you unique workers at like number 10, for example, where there's nothing there. There might now be a spot for you to do something special. And you're just trying to gather as much resources to be able to use to buy esteemed buildings, drop off faction cubes at locations so that their influence is basically spreading throughout the land. But like you were mentioning with um, Evenfall, this game at the very beginning, you're zipping around that board. Then Great Western Trail does this same thing where you're getting to the end pretty quickly, but as the game goes on, there's more and more for you to do, and you're stopping quicker. Where
hmm
normally you would have skipped the first three spots, now you're stopping at each one to try and maximize uh, your strategy before you finally make it to the end. But it's still kind of a race game because the game will end after a certain amount of trips. So then it's like, okay, I can't stop at every single location because Brad is, all throws all caution to the wind and stops at two. So I really like that push and pull of the gameplay whenever you're just like, okay, can I afford to skip this location because then I might be able to get to the end before my opponents do, and that's going to give me some victory points. Um, just the way that this game has so many things for you to do, and also it might not be the first Euro, but it's definitely the most recent that I remember that actually has like a story.
hmm
Like it has um like a narrative element to
Yeah.
it where your board will change with tokens, but it's not like a campaign game. Well, I mean, it has a campaign, I guess, to it, but that was fascinating. I really kind of want to go through that. I haven't gone through all of it. I started it, but And the expansion is really good too because you're upgrading your board, uh, like you do in Great Western Trail. There's a lot of similarities here, but they both they feel different enough that it justifies owning both, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
then the solo is really cool on this too. I like the solo aspect of this game.
okay.
It's pretty decent.
I can't remember if I tried it or not. I feel like I did, but it's been so long I don't remember it, even if I had. But yeah, that's my number 81, Maracaibo.
Good choice. We might talk about that at some point. We'll see.
Cool. Cool.
All right. My number 81 and the final for this list, it was 45 last year. It dipped probably because I just haven't played it a whole lot. It's still a great game. I mean, that's the only reason it could have fallen in my eyes. It's just it hasn't gotten played as much. It dipped a little bit a couple years ago because I was waiting for the expansion to come out. The expansion finally came out and breathed new life into it. But this one is Star Wars Outer Rim.
Nice.
The expansion, the unfinished business expansion, was needed for this game just because it was kind of starting to get a little stale. They came out with that. I don't know if they plan on doing anything else with this. Who knows?
Fantasy Flight is the card game company now.
Well, I was kind
Like,
of hoping they would come out with like something that brought in like the Mandalorian universe into it, since
they might have if that show kept doing gangbusters, but that show fell off hard.
Well, they're getting ready to come with a movie for it.
Fucking I know. That's what I mean. It fell off hard.
I can't wait. I love that show. But
season 1 and 2 were really good.
Yeah. So anyway, this was one of those ones I remember way back when this was first announced, handful of years ago. I think you saw it and you said, "You interested in this?" or something like that. And I was like,
yeah.
I don't know anything about this game, and it just kind of looked weird. The board having the half circle board and all that stuff. I didn't show, but then I went ahead and got it, and I'm glad I did because I always liked Firefly, the board game, but it was just so long and so drawn out and stuff. This one, for all intents and purposes, killed Firefly because you're pretty much doing the same thing, but it's a smaller footprint, and it's doesn't take nearly as long. It's in a universe that I prefer, even though I love Firefly. Star Wars has more depth to it. But pretty much what you're doing on this is you are taking control of a kind of like a scavenger, like a scoundrel type, like a Han Solo type. You're doing odd jobs, and most of them not legal. But you're kind of moving around. You're doing pick up and deliver stuff. You're doing bounties. There's just a bunch of different things you can do, a bunch of different choices. You can choose to be a little more straight arrow. You can choose to be just the kind of the worst of the worst. But you have to watch out because when you're on the Outer Rim, there's these kind of warring little factions out there that can kind of, you could start pissing them off. The more stuff you do that hurts them, and you have to kind of watch where you're going. You start off the game with just at the very bottom, like you're truly scum. You're very bottom. You have a crappy ship, and all that stuff, but you can upgrade your ship as you go throughout. You can get more crew. So like you could start off the game with, Han Solo, of course, or something like that. But you start off with this really basic ship. You could get up to where you get a Falcon, and you can get Chewie as your counter or your co-pilot and all that different stuff. And the whole game ends when you get 10 like victory points or whatever. I don't know I can't remember what the exact term is, but you're shooting for, let's see what it says here. You are I can't 10 fame. That's what it is. You're trying to increase your fame. So once you get 10 fame, you win the game, but you're getting money to do different stuff, but you can spend that money, like I said, to upgrade stuff. You can buy luxury items and all this different stuff for you, crew members, all this junk. It's just one of those deals that fits for what it does, and it makes it in a smaller footprint deal. All the unfinished business expansion did was just add more, added more scoundrels, added more cards for the decks, just stuff like that, just to kind of give it a little bit more, give it a little more life. But yeah, I mean, this is one, it plays good solo. There's been people that's upgraded because you do these standees as you see on the board. That's kind of what you are. But you can buy, if you can find the Armada, the Star Wars Armada, they have these little ship packs.
Oh yeah.
Game. You can actually buy some of those. There's like a Scoundrels and Brigands one that has stuff, and those standees slide right behind them, so you can actually have the ship.
That's cool.
Stuff that goes around. It doesn't have all the ships though, so that's why it's kind of not like an automatic.
Yeah.
But it's kind of neat to be able to have those little element of that ship on the board and stuff like that.
That's true.
But yeah, I mean, it was a surprise when it came out because I wasn't expecting much, for sure.
All right, good deal. Yeah, I have not played this, so I have nothing to add, and I haven't played Firefly either, so I have nothing to add. Never even seen the show, so.
Oh, God, you've never seen Firefly?
No, I have not.
Damn, there's 13 episodes in a movie. Just watch them.
Dude, it's so interesting because like I won't watch TV shows, but I'll watch like a 8-hour YouTube video. It's so weird. I don't know. It's easier for me to just focus on one thing instead of being like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. But that is it, everyone. That is it for this segment. I hope you're enjoying. Let us know what you think of these games in the comments below. Stick around for the rest of the top 100. And like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.